Hi, welcome to Takumi Go. In this video, I will talk about the misconception of Chinese hunting. I have filmed a video a few months ago talking about how the Chinese rules worked. That video was a very deep analysis of the Chinese hunting, and actually even many Chinese Go players don't know very clearly how actually the Chinese hunting work, and I explained how it actually work in that video. And 2 months ago, Go Magic also filmed a video talking about the difference of Chinese hunting and the Japanese hunting. That video is a more entertaining video that introduced the Chinese hunting to beginners. But in the video, I found that people have some misconception of Chinese hunting, as that video makes some mistakes. So I would like to explain this kind of misconception of Chinese hunting with you. So let's begin. The first problem is neutral points. In that video, it suggested that one of the difference of the Japanese rule and the Chinese rule is that in the Japanese rule, you don't need to play the neutral points. You only need to play the neutral points in the Chinese rule, as the neutral points are valuable when we counting the stones. However, that's not very accurate. In the Japanese rule, neutral points are not valuable, but neutral points should be played. In the Japanese rule that have amended in the 1989, the Article 8 suggested that to confirm the lifted stones are not Seki group, neutral points are required to play, because in Japanese rule, the Seki group do not have any territories. As we need to confirm it's not a Seki, we should finish all the damage that mean the neutral points. That's a common misconception, and in Internet Go, it's also very essential to finish all the neutral points. Otherwise, the computer may miscount the points even you choose the Japanese rule. So, neutral points should be played in both Chinese hunting and Japanese hunting. Just in Chinese hunting, the neutral points are valuable, but in Japanese rule, it's not. The next misconception is that the video have suggested that the one benefit of the Chinese rule is that we could play inside the territories and we won't lose anything. It's only correct if you finish playing all the neutral points. That means the game have basically finished. If the neutral points are not finished, although you would not deduct any points by playing inside your own territories, your opponent will get extra points by playing the neutral point. So, you still have a loss in the endgame stage that if there are still some neutral points to be played, you should not play inside the territories. Of course, you could always play inside your territories if you win a lot or you're sure you have enough territories. But if not that, you won't lose anything. That's the second misconception. And the third misconception, in that video, it introduced that why the Japanese rule are different from the Chinese rule is because of Japanese culture. In the 17th century, the Japanese Go become more and more popular. They developed many new theory and system in Japanese Go, and they think that the feudalism culture is very common. The prisoners are kept and would be utilized in the warlords era. This culture have affected the games in Shogi and Go. I think this kind of cultural explanation is kind of bullshit, to be honest. They are just stories told by the Japanese. It's very unique that in Japanese Shogi, you could utilize the prisoners and put it back on the board. It's totally different from the chess or the Chinese chess. But using the cultural side to explain would not be very sensible. In fact, it's not Japanese changed to use territories counting and kept the prisoners. if the Chinese rule changed to use the stone counting in the Ming Qing dynasty, that means around 500 years ago, and it's not very clear that why the Chinese started to use the stone counting, but it's very probably due to the gambling, because Chinese loves gambling, and gambling is one of the major functions of gold in China. If we use the territories counting and kept the prisoners, it would be quite easy to cheat. To prevent cheating, stones counting become more and more popular to prevent cheating. So I think this makes a lot of sense. Anyway. Lastly, the video suggested the problem of call me. It tried to explain why the Chinese will have an extra call me, because in stone counting, black played first, so the extra call me point is used to compensate the benefit of playing first. If you're playing first and playing last, then you will have one stone more. To compensate this, you will have a larger call me. This explanation is not completely wrong, but also totally not the full picture of the case. In my old video, I've explained detailedly how the Chinese counting works, and I explained why the call me works in 3.75 stones. You could check out that video. It's not very entertaining, but it is very useful for you to understand how the Chinese counting works. So, to explain why we cannot have a 6.5 points call me in Chinese counting, we need to understand that the call me in Chinese counting is 3.75 stones, but not 7.5 points. They are two different concepts. And as we could not have the call me of 3 stones, or 3.25 stones, or 3.5 stones, we could only have call me of 3.75 stones. Then, it turned out that we usually need 8 points of territories leading for black in order to win in the Chinese rule. Actually, you could win by 7 points of territories in some special cases. I have go through those cases in other videos. You may check them out. It's very important for dumb players to know these details of Chinese rule if you will play in tournaments that's using the Chinese rule. But let's get into the topic that is it possible to alter the Chinese rule so that we could achieve a similar result as 6.5 points call me in Japanese rule? The answer is actually yes, we could actually do it. Let's see how. The solution is we could change the call me to 2.75 stones. And if white pass first, black need to compensate 1 stone in the counting. That means if black play the last stone and white pass first, then black need to compensate 1 stone in the counting. So black require 180.5 plus 2.75 call me, then black needs 183.25 stones to win. Normally we don't have 0.25 stones or 0.5 stones, so we need 184 stones. When black has 184 stones, white has 177 stones. That means the black has 7 more stones than the white. In that case, that means when black is leading by 7 stones, black win. This is the same result of call me of 6.5 points. But the problem is that if black only leads by 6 points in territories, black will also be available to play the last neutral point and get 184 stones. But with this added rule, if white play first, black need to compensate 1 stone in the counting. Then, even black has 184 stones by playing the last neutral point. After black compensate 1 stone, the black was still going to lose. That means if black only leads by 6 points, the black will lose. Then, only a leading of 7 points or more in territories will lead to a win for the black, and thus create a same result of 6.5 points call me in the Japanese rule. If you find this very confusing, then you probably not very understand the Chinese rule yet. If you understand the Chinese rule very clearly, then you know that this would actually work. This idea, after I checked the internet for the information, I found that indeed in 50 years ago, Toshio Ikeda already suggested the same thing for the Chinese rule. Toshio Ikeda was former managing director of Fujitsu and was a pioneer of domestic computer production in Japan, of course 50 years ago. He was also a Go hobbyist that liked to research on Go rules. He thought that the Japanese could adopt the Chinese rule, and he thought that the only problem of the Chinese rule is that would be benefited by playing the first tone and also playing the last tone. So he suggested if the white pass first, that means the black play the last tone, black need to compensate one tone. He already suggested this idea 50 years ago. And it actually makes sense because especially today, after we have AI, we know that the Chinese rule would be easier for the white and the Japanese rule would be more fair to both the black and the white. So it is considerable for the Chinese rule to make a slightly change. But anyway, this video have discussed some misconception about the Chinese rule and the Chinese counting. I hope you find the video helpful. Thank you for watching and see you next time.